common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Big news today on the legal front. The man accused in the assassination attempt against former President Trump at that Florida golf course, he was in court. He pleaded not guilty. His attorney says he wants a jury trial. So where's this headed and a lot more? Joining us now is the former acting attorney general under then President Trump, Matt Whittaker. Matt, we love having you on the show, my friend. Your thoughts my first thought is he working towards like, an insanity defense? Is that where you think this is headed, this case with the shooter in Florida? Hey, Matt, can you hear us? We're working on getting Matt. Judge, what do you think as we're trying to get Matt here? I think he's working towards an insanity defense.
It's the obvious first ploy.
That's really all he has, I think.
That's right. I agree with the congressman. It's the obvious first ploy. Now, whether he gets away with it is something else. But I don't think he's insane. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. The standard in the law is to know what you're doing, the consequences of what you're doing. And I think he satisfies that legal test.
Yeah, and
Judge, let me ask you a question.
He sat outside for 12 hours. How could you say it's not premeditation?
If he didn't fire a shot, can he make up a story about not being there? Maybe he went there to scare or expose the lack of security. Is that a viable defense?
The argument's going to be made, and I'm not saying I buy into it. But the argument Peter has made that since he didn't fire a shot, right, it really wasn't an attempt yet. That he had to do something a little bit more than stay in the woods.
The note, that's where that letter comes through. That letter that was put out that is kind of controversial.
That might not be. I agree he's going to be convicted, but it's not a
slam dunk.
It's not
a slam dunk.
Legally, it's not.
The problem is you need to do something. You need to. The general standard is you need to do something more. Yeah. Exactly, Peter. An overt act.
So where do you think this is headed, you guys? I mean, do you believe that indeed they'll have enough? Look, I go back to that letter because that's why the DOJ claims that they released that letter, Attorney General Merrick Garland, because in it said, "Hey, I'm so sorry, Iran, I didn't finish the job. I'll put out the 150 bounty."
Right. The interesting thing is if you can't get him on attempted murder, maybe you get him on conspiracy to murder, and you do that by showing an agreement by two or more people to do an illegal act. Okay. So now the question is who that other party would be.
And now let's bring in Matt Whittaker. We just got him back here on the line. Matt, your thoughts about this guy pleading not guilty. This is the Florida shooter on the golf course. What do you? I think he's headed towards maybe a insanity plea. Where do you think he's going?
This is obviously the very first step they superseded his indictment to include the assassination attempt. And so I think, they probably even haven't thought about how to defend this. It's indefensible, and that's why the judge decided to keep him in jail because I don't think anybody thinks he's going to be not guilty ultimately of the charges. It'll be interesting. I mean, he looks, by all accounts, to not be all there. And it sounds like he was very erratic when he went to Ukraine. But at the same time, I mean, this is we'll see ultimately what they end up doing with him.
Peter Navarro has a question for you, Matt.
I want to know who's paying his legal bills because he's got some really high-priced talent there working for him, Matt. And he didn't act alone, I guess, maybe.
Well, that's all going to come out eventually, right? But I think right now, everything I've read says he has, court-appointed lawyers. Now, in my experience, it's not just the public defender. Court-appointed attorneys can be people from what they call the pool. And really high-profile cases, they can usually get pretty good defense lawyers to take the $85 an hour or whatever they pay public defenders and pool attorneys. And so you can get, for the right case, you can get pretty talented lawyers that'll want to take it because the judges kind of have a way to, pick attorneys to handle a high-profile defendant.
All right. And Matt, we just have like 1 minute left real quick on the Engoron case here, because that's the other big case where the big civil penalties, $400 million plus. And I thought last week we were talking about the appeals, judges. They seemed kind of sympathetic that this was clearly over the top by New York. I mean, that was a good sign for Trump.
No doubt. The New York Court of Appeals, we had all sorts of questions like we've asked is, no one claimed to be harmed. It sounds like a commercial dispute where, is this outside of the Attorney General's jurisdiction? Do we need to impose guardrails? The court asked on the Attorney General because of how far afield they've gone to do this case. And one of the judges even said this penalty is very troubling. So I mean, I think there were 5 judges on the panel, and so it's going to depend what 3 of them decide. They either will reduce dramatically the fine, or they may kick the case entirely as just being completely out of the jurisdiction of the Attorney General to bring in a because there was no dispute. Everybody was paid back in full.
Yeah, they made money.
There was nobody was harmed. It's the craziest thing, and I think the Court of Appeals was really struggling with what Judge Ingren had done.
Absolutely. Well, Matt Whittaker, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Always love having you on, Matt. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you both.